unfortunately. So we'll see if there can be an upset in the bottom left. Now, Red Zerg to kick us off in this series, it is going to be eGGz from the Platinum Heroes.
And played from the Shopify Rebellion. It is in the top right-hand side of the map, the blue Zerg player, Scarlett. Ooh. She should always be red, I feel like, just name-wise.
Just always be red, yeah. The ESL seeding color system doesn't approve of that, though, cats. They don't take names into consideration.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
X should always be yellow or white.
Yeah, well, we're definitely not allowed to play in yellow, man. That's just against all the rules. It's red or blue only, okay?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, to be honest. Like, yeah.
So I think when
Why
they have,
do we have that rule still?
I think when they have bigger events, obviously the stage is red or blue for which player, right? And then obviously like the graphics, like the players are in like a red box or a blue box, depending on which color they are. So it kind of makes sense.
Or if you're MLG, maybe it makes sense. Like for branding, if you're MLG, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
MLG used to be just red and blue, but
I guess. If it's always red or blue, then you can make sure it always looks red or blue always look good, I guess. Something like that.
I guess. Well, there's plenty of opposing colors that they could use.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
I mean, then we could have a discussion about those opposing colors, man. Why is it these ones?
No, but yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, because you wouldn't want like yellow versus orange. You know?
No, that's
like
the problem.
It might be confusing, especially in a CVC, yeah.
Especially in mirrors. It's not so, but I always thought this, like when it was generally if it's like a non-mirror matchup, I kind of don't mind the colors being similar. In a mirror matchup, it gets bad. Though.
Yeah.
Mirror matchups, they have to be different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially with little units like Circlings and stuff like that running around.
Yeah. Very uninteresting opening because it's just hatch gas pool apiece and pretty much mirrored builds. Very slight difference on ling timings, for example. Scarlett gets 2 lings where eGGz did not. That is really the difference in this game so far. So very, very minor differences. They are going to live up to the name of a mirror matchup for at least the moment. Is it our... Oh, yeah, we had a PvP earlier. I was going to say, it's our first mirror matchup all day. The other day we had so many mirror matchups. It almost feels like we haven't had many today in comparison, so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Scarlett will spot this hatchery and put a little bit of damage up until eGGz has his own 2 Circlings here. There's possibility for out micro here, which would be pretty annoying if you're eGGz. So let's see if Scarlett can get it. Not going to choose to engage in it. Instead runs towards the Queen, which is going to make sure that eGGz has the upper edge with his 2 Circlings no matter what.
Yep. No, nicely done there as Balin Nest comes up on both sides of the map. And that is just going to be still mirrored for the moment. So if you see you enter in a Ling Bane phase of the game, that's generally where we diverge a little bit. Because generally one player makes more lings and becomes the aggressor. And then that kind of cat and mouse game of, I made lings, now you have to make lings. And when you make lings, I make drones. And then you're going to attack me. And we go back and forth on that. That's when that all kind of begins to kind of play out. You can see both players are kind of making lings though. Scarlett was a little bit faster to hers. And so for the moment, they're just going to match each other in production.
Yeah, and Scarlett morphing up to 4 Banelings, 2 of them defensively, 2 a little bit more out on the map. But like you said, I mean, eGGz, on paper at least, has had the better end of the decision-making in the sense that he made his links later. Not really reflected in the supply, however, nor on the drone count, so that's a little bit of just a user difference, I guess, at this point. And Scarlett is moving across with her Banelings as 2 already connected. It looks like a lot of those drones are very much in the red, so they will be full. They will be falling very quickly. I love that Scarlett only splits 3 Circlings to do the job, as there's not much more surface area than you can find with more than that. On the other side, eGGz trying to do his own little bit of damage, and he's actually going to find a good connection towards the tail end with 3 extra drones, making it up to 6, the tally. So not uncontested is this early game.
Not uncontested, but then you look at this, and then Scarlett's got 30 drones to 21. So for the same amount of drones killed, Scarlett somewhere found just so much more money. And she's making use of that money, and that's probably the issue that eGGz is going to fall into now, where you're down 10 workers, you got to do some serious work, but it's going to be tough if Scarlett micros this correctly with her own Banelings. It's going to be tough to find any further damage, really. Scarlett puts a Roach Roaring down as well. She is going to be very safe and secure going to that. This looks... It's funny because it almost seems like it comes from nowhere, right? But Scarlett is just now ahead after this early game, and we're going to see if these Banes can maybe change anything at all. Everyone's running around looking for something. It's going to get a little chaotic, but in the end, Scarlett's going to deal with all the Banes of her opponents And then she has Banes of her own still left. I mean, there's a few Lings left over that she has to deal with, but again, the Banelings are just such a good deterrent. They really can buy all the time she needs to get more units out if necessary.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And it is unfortunate because, again, it is just kind of like on screen. We don't really see what causes this, but on the back end, Scarlett is just cleaner than eGGz. She's just a better player, and that means she's going to gain advantages while there's chaos going on. She's going to be able to manage her economy and her production and her injects a little bit better, and that ultimately just nets her an advantage that is almost strategically uncalled for. As on the other side, she's going to go and apply extra pressure, kills a queen already and a bunch of drones. That's going to force eGGz back, which just makes this game a nightmare for him now.
Yeah, Scarlett just forces eGGz back. Is already kind of set up again, healthy at home. The drone count's even out, but Scarlett's already making even more drones than what eGGz is making, so we'll look to re-establish that lead. And we just have Ling, Bane, or Scarlett continue to power out onto the map, just looking great in general. Roaches are continuing to produce on the side of eGGz, but obviously Scarlett's going to be able to afford more. And this already has me thinking, this was just, they both did the same thing. They both even made kind of, Lings at similar times. Scarlett just got ahead, like you said, she's just a bit cleaner behind it all. Her mechanics are that little bit stronger. It has me wondering what eGGz is going to come up with for the rest of this series, as the Baneling doesn't get anything. And Scarlett just going to wrap around for cleanup, basically.
Yeah, it looked like the Baneling had a lot of potential, and it did. One of them does connect in a huge way, but if we look at the supply, after all is said and done, it's half for eGGz at this point.
Yeah, and that's why I just think, going into the next games, what is eGGz going to come up with? Because okay, you get into the series and maybe you say, cool, I'm just going to play fairly standard. Let's see how it goes. This was a bit of a smashing, right? So now you got to go into game 2 and say, right, what am I going to do that's going to give me a chance of doing better? Like, you can't really just do the same again because your mechanics aren't going to magically improve from game 1 to game 2. Yeah. Unless you feel as though, oh, I got supply block there. I can improve on that. Like, unless it was something like that, that you can improve on immediately, sure, but otherwise, this has just got to be an approach of, okay, what kind of, mind games can I play? What advantages can I create for myself? How do I make game 2 more competitive for myself? That's what eGGz has got to ask. It's a tough question. He's just in a tough matchup here.
He really is. Scarlett is the type of player that she has been around for 13 years. I got to compete with her a bunch, and I got to take a series or so against her in some maps here and there, and the way that I would approach the series, and I always did against her, is not to try to match her mechanics, not to try to play that longer game, because that's just not going to work out for me. Like, I know that every minute that we're doing the same thing, she's doing it better, and on the decision making front, I mean, she's absolutely brilliant. She's one of the most consistent players that we've ever had in StarCraft 2. She has been good since the beginning, pretty much. And a lot of that consistency is found through mechanical prowess and just solid decision making. So you got to trick her, you got to play your own game, like 13-12, 12 pool, that sort of opening that makes it so that there's less time and opportunities to make mistakes on your end. And maybe there's something to capitalize on, because these openings are not weak in the matchup. Like, they might still have a slight advantage to the defender, but they're not weak. You can see them at the highest level still, and they're the type of opening that you're not gonna mess up your macro while going for a 12 pool or a 13-12. So if you can gain a small advantage there, then you can maybe look to snowball that.
I looked up your history with Scarlett Cat's just interested. You played 3 times, once in 2012, once in 2015, and once in 2018.
Every 3 years, I think.
Yeah, every 3 years.
Competitively at 30 years.
Yeah, that's funny. You won 1 time.
Yeah.
Not a bad record.
I won 1 time.
Not a bad record.
Bad. Took a map last time around, and against Scarlett, I'm very proud of that. I actually googled that recently, because we were we're developing a game together as well with Scarlett, so we get to talk a lot, and we were looking at player records. I don't know why Happy was brought up, and we were wondering if we had ever played Happy, and then my next search was myself against her.
Yeah, fun one. All right, top left. Let's see what the difference will be here for him. It is going to be eGGz trying to bounce back in this best of 5.
And in the bottom right-hand side, it's Scarlett for the Shopify Rebellion. The yin to my yang.
She goes hatchery 1 drone sooner. And she gets a couple more drones started up more quickly. Very minor difference again, as most importantly, it's hatchery first versus hatchery first. It's not going to be one of those earlier pool builds that Eggs could have maybe tried to utilize to gain an edge here. Instead, we're just going to be seeing Hatch, Gas, Pool on both sides. Of course, the beauty of ZVZ is there's still, different times at which you can make the difference happen. It doesn't have to be straight away, so we'll see what goes on.
Yeah, but this is a problem that if Eggs doesn't really have a bag of tricks and he can only play a macro standard game, that's gonna be almost impossible, I feel like, to beat someone that's just straight up better at doing the exact same thing, right? Scarlett is the type of player that is super complete. She can play the normal game, she can play the underdog game, she can play tricky, she can play everything pretty much. She's pretty solid at, so very, very difficult player to find an opening and try to sneak a win out of, but X isn't even trying to be sneaky, and that's what's worrisome.
Yeah. No, exactly. He's just kind of currently playing straight up, and that gets me scared. Unless Eggs is just like, what? I'm not going to sneak a win out. I'm just going to take this as some really good practice and just sort of because that's not a terrible way to take it. If you really don't think you can sneak out an edge, take it as good practice, right? And then take it forward and, take the experience into the next series. Whether that's ZVZ or not, just, take that opportunity to kind of move on through and just say, okay, I learned from that. Let's try and be better next time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do that. Watch the replay, etc. Like, just set the expectations low. Play your game and see how far you can take it. Because, like you said, this is not just ladder practice. This is also, you know your opponent is showing up for this. Your opponent is focused. They're not messing about. So it is the best practice that you can get in some sense. And maybe that's the way to use it. Though X is going for a very fast lair and an Evo chamber. So very likely to see a 2-base Roach attack here with +1.
Yep, so there we go. A little bit of a switch up from Eggs. Didn't ever get that Ling's speed and is just instead going to get the lair. Like you mentioned, the Evo Chamber, the Roach Roam sets you up for an aggressive attack potentially further down the line. This will all be off no third hatchery. Scarlett will keep an eye on that and will start to probably figure it out sooner rather than later. Her Ling speed will allow her to stay on the map with the Lings quite nicely as well. And she just moves over. She is Overlord hunting. She is realizing there's nothing to punish her from doing this, so she's just going to come across and... Yeah, just pick up a free Overlord if you can get one. That's just going to slow Eggs down. It's the kind of thing that's going to push Scarlett further ahead in this game.
Yeah, and you love to see that, right? It's the sort of a decision that you make, like you said, on a dime. As soon as she knows that she's unthreatened and she confirms there's a wall off, you're gasless, like you're not going for any sort of aggression, then she moves out and makes the decisions very quick, which complicates things. It's those little details, like a player that makes the decision a few seconds later, supply blocks you or kills that Overlord a few seconds later, and that's a lesser advantage in some sense. I do like the approach of X though, because this sort of move kind of negates all of the mechanical prowess of Scarlett. Like, you're playing your own game, you're playing single player right now, and you're not gonna die to anything, right? So the only disadvantage that you put yourself at is that with an opponent as experienced as Scarlett, if she gets the right read, she should gain a small edge come your attack. But at least you're safe. At least you're not trading actions against her.
Yep. As the Overseer moves in to save that Overlord from the Queen Hunt, we do have the Roach speed and the +1 missile upgrade still building up on the side of Egg. So that continues through. And as that continues through, we just have ourselves... Obviously, Egg's going to hit those upgrades soon, but Scarlett is not terribly far behind. Roach speed is not as important defensively straight away. So, yeah, she should defensively be okay. Obviously, she did get up to a good drone count very quickly. But she starts to crank out army now and is just going to be okay against this attack. I like her position. It is just important that she now builds roaches and really focuses on roaches.
And that's the thing about this sort of opening, is if you have the right read on it, the reason you don't see it every game is because with the right read, you should get a slight economic lead. And Scarlett has gotten a 10 worker economic lead, which is even almost pushing the boundary a little bit. So Egg's very unlikely to find anything with this. Scarlett's already going to be in position, has her roaches join up with the queens as well. And she has good vision on the map, so she can mirror the movements of Eggs very easily. And now Eggs is just behind.
Absolutely. That's the issue with this kind of build. If your opponent responds to it well, if they don't try and make Lings and punish you and then you defend, like, if none of that happens, then yeah, what Scarlett has done is just going to put it naturally ahead, and yeah, maybe Egg is going to find a +2, +1 timing, but if he even lives to see that, because there's a real potential Scarlett just comes and kills Eggs with a lot of roaches now that she is just up a bunch of army supply. There's nothing to stop her from testing her chances across the map.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I'm sure she's going to do. She knows that her third is considerably earlier. So now she's not even looking to saturate it. She's just looking for more roaches. And that's going to be good enough. So hoping to catch eggs, probably droning at this point.
Yep, I'm just going to start moving forward. It is a lot of roaches. Just going to open up these rocks. Eggs will see it, so he sees the roaches coming. Now we are, what, about 30 seconds-ish away from +1 carapace, which would be the first upgrade lead he would take in this. Scarlett is just cranking roaches, of course. She never started +2 or +1, so that's money she doesn't spend on those upgrades, so it's more money into pure roaches, which right now are not going to be affected by an upgrade deficit. So now she dives in. She has a massive army supply lead. First couple corrosive bars coming down, but Scarlett just looks already like she has way too much. And Egg's trying something different, but is kind of going to end with the same result as in game number 1, which is that Scarlett just did the correct thing, did a little bit better, mechanics were smooth. I'm just going to send her through to a 2-0 lead convincingly in this best of 5.
Yeah, exactly. This is sort of like a skill check, right? A skill check type build where if you don't react perfectly or good enough, like there's very narrow windows where you can easily overdrone and then you can get punished. X did a few things different to the norm as well, in that he didn't like super lean heavily on his attack. He instead like started droning and started setting up for 2-1. And if he gets to that 2-1, to be fair, then all of a sudden he will be in a good position. But just so very difficult to do. So I like the Ravagers, but they were a little bit late. If you have like maybe not 2 but 4 Ravagers and you can hold that choke for long enough, then maybe there's a chance. But not to be Scarlett too good.
Yeah, Scarlett is just looking very convincing so far, man. Not really much else to say. There's not rocket science involved in this one. It's just plain simple ZVZ. It's very much so going the way of Scarlett so far. Oceanborn for game 3. I think I would just like to see if Eggs really wants to try and take like a dub. I think I'd really like to see just something that just goes super quickly, like you said, like 12 pool, 13-12. Super aggro, maybe Scarlett, because at that point, at least it's like, it's a micro war, but one little micro mistake can end the game, and it's much more likely Scarlett makes one little micro mistake than she makes a massive set of macro mechanical mistakes, right? So, if Eggs wants to win it, I think it's got to be something like that. If this is Hatch Gas Pool versus Hatch Gas Pool, I'm not a believer unless Eggs has some like magnificent mind game built into it, so... We'll
exactly. And when you're a player that has been playing for 13 years like Scarlett has, you've seen all the standard builds. So like the build that Eggs tried last game, sure, it removes you having to trade actions against her early on, which is a plus in some sense, but she's seen this build a million times. It's nothing new, nothing out of the ordinary, right? So I would have much rather him try to take something like an early gold on a weird map or like I like to throw hatcheries on my wall and stuff like that just makes you unpredictable, and it makes it so that your opponent doesn't really or can't have like the correct response as easily because they haven't seen it as much before. I think that's a good underdog mentality to take, but if you just play standard against a better player, it's not gonna work out ever.
No, it's really not, as we get ourselves ready for game number 3. Oceanborn. As it goes on a map, this is fairly standard, maybe even a fairly macro map as well. But like for ZVZ, maybe that just shouldn't matter. Let's see what goes down, as we do have in the bottom right-hand side, from the Shopify Rebellion, this is going to be our blue Zerg player, Scarlett.
And in the top left-hand side, the best Colombian player to ever play StarCraft 2, it's Eggs.
Great run from Eggs to make it to the round of 8. It definitely wasn't an easy run, especially now that these Americas regions are combined. It's great to see extra representation from the Latin American region. I mean, that's essentially 4-4, right? 4 North American players, 4 Latin American players in the playoffs this season, so that's really cool to see. Yeah. That's, again, we said it for Asia, we say it for Americas. This combination of regions has really been a blessing for these, for these outside of Europe regions. They've definitely done nothing but make the scene more competitive and made it, gotten a lot more attention on these regions as well, because a lot more people want to, tune in and watch these games because they are that much more exciting for the most part. So, yeah, I really love that change.
Absolutely, like the biggest stakes that we can get, and then we have like players that we don't usually see match up against each other nearly as much as we have been seeing for the last 5-6 years of the systems before they were combined. So it is very cool, and it is very nice to see this clash of styles and whatnot. And Also, like you said, the Latin America region kind of surprisingly strong, right? So that's also cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's you know, a lot of people think Latin America and they think for sure just special, right? And then yeah, Killers and Sham challenge special and sometimes came out on top of special and should not be forgotten about. And we expect them to do well in Americas, but to really see them like continuing to, you know, really kind of come into Americas really strong and really just show that, hey, look, we can contend in this region to like take the championship even. Very cool in general. And yeah, Cats, this game is Hatch Gas Pool, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not loving it for Eggs already. I know it's just 2 minutes and then nothing's happened, but the last 2 games happened.
He's
and
behind.
That's a good... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's behind and nothing's happened apart from not deciding to all in almost. Harsh to say, but just kind of the truth of it.
It's rough. It's rough. We'll see what he can do. I mean, this is kind of a narrow choke, so he could go for another one of those kind of eBay blocks, eBay wall-offs of sorts. Maybe he can get trickier and fake roaches and go for +1 melee or something. He has to try to catch Scarlett off guard.
Yep. Absolutely has to, as these first 4 Zerglings make their way out and down toward the bottom right side of the map. 4 Lings from Scarlett. Ling speed of her own. Again, Eggs has not gone for the Ling speed, so he's going to play into that faster lair once again. And we'll see what he's going to do out of this faster lair.
Can't imagine it's much more than roaches, right? Like, at least he doesn't have the Evo chamber, so maybe it is a little bit different, but I mean, what can you do other than roaches with this fast of a lair? There has to be a roach warren going down. Yeah, there it is.
Yep, just goes down, and now going to follow up with the Evo chamber too, so yeah, there you go. I'm going to see the same idea again from Eggs, and we'll see if he does it any differently, although I don't know what differently you can really do. It's not like you can really attack much sooner than you attacked. Not with the lag coming up, right? Like, maybe if you go Roach Run, Evo Chamber, cancel the lag, you spam like a ton of roaches and you just go earlier. But with the lag coming up, it definitely says that, hey, look, I'm just going to get +1, I'm going to get Roach Speed. And then we're very much so playing the same game as what we just saw.
Yep, pretty much the exact same thing. I was going to say he saved up on an Evo, but not even. Compared to last game, he still dropped the extra Evo just in case Scarlett tries to apply pressure. And yeah, she's going to be very comfortable here, just knowing, I mean, she just defeated the same opening, so yeah, I'll be surprised if she tries anything different.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be, right? +1 missiles, keep droning. You're going to get to a lot more drones a lot faster. You're going to saturate the third base a bit where your opponent doesn't have a third. And you can just spam your own roaches. Should be fairly safe to do so. Yeah, I mean, we just saw exactly how this plays out. There's not really, like you say, any reason for Scarlett to change it. And there's not really room for Eggs to change it. Like, his build doesn't allow for variation. It's kind of less like, you know, this is the setup that you take. He did it right the last time. It's just Scarlett played correctly against it. And again, that's potentially where we're going again.
Yep.
Yeah, I know there's not much to add, right?
There really isn't. He's doing the exact same thing that he just got crushed doing. I mean, he could lean heavier on the roaches this time around instead of trying to, you know, commit more economy and drones into a third. Like, he could go past the amount of, which he is actually. So it's a little bit different, right? Like, last time around, it was more or less this roach move out that we see at the front. This time around, it's the queens, the roaches, and the follow-up roaches right behind him. So a lot heavier of a commitment. Scarlett identifies that, instantly drops a spine crawler. We'll see if it will be fast enough. Beautiful creep highway as well. So yeah, we're seeing a little bit of a switch up, like basically the same base, but a little bit different of a soup, and we'll see if X can make it work.
And Scarlett is, 20 workers ahead right now, so maybe caught a little off guard. Spine crawler's on the way, but not ready yet. So she might have just been caught kind of doing the same thing in her comfort zone, right? So yeah, a good move from Eggs. It made it look so similar, but actually there's a lot of difference to it. Those spines still on the way up. Scarlett is getting a lot of roaches out. Can she just hold on? Can these spines make the difference? Plus the fact that obviously Eggs has to run from across the map. That is where, of course, that creep highway comes into play. Just getting across the map ASAP going to help you a lot with these reinforcements.
Yeah, but there's 10 roaches on the way for Scarlett, so not all is said and done. And actually, she's repositioning a spine, which is an opportunity for Eggs to punch on forward. I did not love that reposition, and it's going to pan out well for Eggs. Scarlett now having to pull workers. The spine finally gets rooted, but it only gets one shot off. So yeah, that was definitely a mistake on the side of Scarlett. That was her anchor. Now the rest of the units are popping up, and she might be able to yet still hold while still retaining a massive worker lead by the looks of it, which is just wild. It looked good.
Yeah, starts to reinvest in her upgrades. She did cancel her upgrades to make sure she could afford as much as possible against this. And that's obviously a big deal as well. So she is going to be behind that +1 missiles, but she starts up the roach speed herself. She's very close to holding. We're very nearly there. We are just waiting on a few more roaches to pop. She hasn't had queens, so she's not as many injects, but you're starting to see that the reinforcements of eggs are just not showing up soon enough. So Scarlett is going to hold, and you can kind of already see that as she holds, that worker advantage is going to go a long way. So the only thing she's missing is an upgrade. eGGz is not starting any further upgrades himself. And the problem is if he starts up upgrades now, he's going to be even further behind on the roach count. And so he very much so just knows that this hold was good enough